an important letter swap, honoring a baseball legend, and innovating in the fight against IHOP. Denny's may not be the cultural landmark it once was, but the story of how it got to where it is today is a fascinating bit of history. The Denny's diner that we all know today didn't burst out of the gate as a 24-hour option to fill up on breakfast food. Its history begins in 1953, when a humble bakery called Danny's Donuts launched in Lakewood, California. The menu contained donuts, coffee, and a serving of hospitality that came free with every order. Proprietors Richard Jezak and Harold Butler bought the first location and added several other locations over several years. Harold Butler eventually transformed the early concept of Danny's Donuts into Winchell's Donut House, a West Coast confectionery contender that gave Dunkin' a run for its donuts in the 1970s. While there are still plenty of Winchell's locations in operation in California that prove out Butler's concept, Danny's Donuts would quickly evolve a step closer to becoming the Denny's that's become famous throughout the world. In 1956, Danny's Donuts turned into a 24-hour operation to provide refreshments for the round-the-clock workforce operating the Douglas Aircraft Factory. This was the first of several lasting features that would eventually turn the burgeoning chain into an anytime diner. The undeniable convenience and availability helped the original location gain a foothold on the local landscape, fed by a steady flow of locals in need of sustenance at all hours. The hours of operation weren't the only change made in this era. To prevent confusion between Danny's and Coffee Dan's, another 24-hour coffee shop operation, the name changed to Denny's in 1961. It was all uphill from there, and by 1996, there were over 100 Denny's restaurants. With a mix of franchises and company-owned locations, the expansion jumped on the new wave of consumers who were too busy to cook and were on the lookout for fast, fresh food to savor.
I love to get out of the kitchen, and Denny's is a great place to come for dinner.
By the end of the 1960s, the number of Denny's locations had reached the 500-plus mark, with growth continuing into the new decade. It wasn't enough for Denny's to conquer America. The chain set its sights on other regions of the world, starting with an Acapulco location, which opened in 1967. This expansion signaled Denny's intention of bringing American-style diner fare to a global audience. Now Denny's could grow beyond the borders of the U.S., capitalizing on a simple, dependable format that was fast becoming a darling on the domestic dining scene, a trend that would continue well into the new millennium as Denny's reached South America, the Middle East, and Indonesia. In 1968, Denny's went public and began trading shares on the New York Stock Exchange. Taking on outside investors helped fuel growth through the years, and this was the age of upward growth and outward expansion for the chain. The idea of restaurant eating for busy families was catching on, and a wholesome atmosphere offering food that emulated home cooking available around the clock was a concept that consumers ate up with a passion. With new locations added every year, there was still major growth in store for this former coffee shop that had taken the dining world by storm. One of Denny's longest-lasting contributions to the world of dining, the Grand Slam Breakfast, was introduced in Atlanta, Georgia in 1977 as a tribute to local MLB superstar Hank Aaron. The order included a roundup of Denny's best items and made them available in a single-priced collection. Now, guests could enjoy 2 each of Denny's buttermilk pancakes, eggs of any style, bacon strips, and sausage links all in one generous menu listing instead of having to order everything a la carte. The fact that it came with a catchy name made it even easier to spread the word among the dining public. It was a smash that helped keep Denny's thriving with the dining public, while demonstrating the chain's ability to tap into pop culture to create meaningful connections with customers. Even guests who had no idea who Hank Aaron was could benefit from the tie-in. The Grand Slam became so familiar, it led to competitors like IHOP releasing similar catchy named collections like their Rooty Tooty Fresh and Fruity in the 1980s. Regardless of the imitators, Denny's will always be the chain that hit a home run with its heavy-hitting breakfast roundup. In less than 20 years, Denny's had gone from a small collection of California coffee shops to one of the most familiar restaurants in the U.S. This was the era when it seemed like there was suddenly a Denny's just about everywhere you looked. The proliferation made it easy to find a sit-down space when fast food felt a little too casual and high dining wasn't on the menu. Part of Denny's growth in the 1980s came from the financial troubles of another diner chain called Sambo's. After filing for bankruptcy and closing down most of its locations, Sambo's sold 48 restaurants to Denny's in 1982, expanding the company's location count without requiring new construction. The decade saw Denny's become a dining standard that was outlasting other diner-style restaurants. Good signs for a chain on the rise.
Everybody likes Denny's. It's an American institution.
Controversy rocked Denny's foundation in the 1990s, with several instances of customer discrimination resulting in lawsuits for the chain. In 1993, a federal suit was brought against Denny's after 6 African-American Secret Service agents dining at a restaurant in Annapolis, Maryland, were kept waiting for service for more than an hour. It was the 3rd discrimination suit filed against the restaurant within a year's time. Another class action lawsuit arose in 1994, accusing Denny's of similar practices. By the end of 1995, both suits had been settled, with Denny's paying out a total of $54 million in damages to 295,000 customers.
Is it the color of my skin? I mean, that's where I left it at. Is that the problem?
Though Denny's made changes to its operations, hoping to eliminate these discriminatory practices among its restaurants, yet another discrimination suit was filed against the company in 2011, this time focusing on an employee who became disabled after having her leg amputated. Management refused to allow her to return to work. The employee sued, and Denny's paid $1.3 million to settle the matter. So while Denny's was pushing to maintain its status as an all-American diner, a shadow had settled over the company with headlines that portrayed a change in fortune for this longtime favorite. Other outlets like IHOP, Black Bear Diner, and Waffle House gave Denny's a run for its dining money, pulling in customers with the enticement of menu alternatives and locations that were well within reach of the hungry public. And if Denny's was where your parents went for dinner, you probably want a new place to call your own, one that addresses your appetite on your terms. By the early 2000s, the dining out trend was hitting a high point. With the rise of Red Robin, Chili's, and Applebee's, the concept of the neighborhood diner turned into a more pub-like blueprint, while Denny's held firm to its old-fashioned diner roots. However, the idea of eating at an old-fashioned eatery became outdated. With so many shiny new spots cropping up around the country offering more refined fare, casual diners had their pick of places designed to appeal to a younger crowd with contemporary tastes. The powers that be at Denny's recognized the need to evolve, but were leery of straying too far from the original blueprint. It's a tightrope walk faced by many companies, but for Denny's, the challenge proved to be multifaceted, expensive, and taxing overall. And missteps like trying to associate the 24-hour diner with late-night after-party hipness just seemed like a sad overreach. The company tried to emulate the fast casual concept, going so far as to create a secret menu to generate buzz and dubbing itself America's Diner in 2011. New interiors and exteriors introduced in 2017 helped update location decor. As recently as 2020, Denny's launched marketing campaigns that tapped into the chain's retro-casual potential, emphasizing a return to the comforts of the past with an eye firmly trained on the future. This rebranding aimed to position Denny's among its contemporaries, pushing takeout and delivery options as competitive features. Despite its best efforts to pivot, Denny's 2020 same-store sales showed a 32.9% decrease domestically, though at least part of that percentage could be blamed on the COVID-19 pandemic. Though the company's earnings and location count had rebounded a bit by 2023, Denny's still faces hurdles as it reckons its vintage past with the present driven by a more youthful demographic. As of September 2024, former COO Christopher Bode has stepped back into the role after a stint leading Hardee's in hopes of steering Denny's back to a semblance of its former glory. Considering the depth of Denny's current sales slump, time will tell if reinstating a key player brings fresh vision or turns the ongoing evolution stale. At the same time, the chain has made changes to its core functions that may be counter to a successful transition into the future. By shifting to a simplified menu and removing customers' ability to customize their orders, Denny's has eliminated one of its most popular features. Reintroducing its value menu puts the company on par with fast food favorites like McDonald's and Carl's Jr., chains that have brought back bargain fare to draw in diners on a budget. Further complicating the situation are dynamics like inflation, social shifts toward more modern menus, and home delivery services like Uber Eats that may have developed too quickly for Denny's to keep up. After trying to keep up with the pack before circling back to the original concept, Denny's isn't entirely out of moves. A surprisingly forward-thinking plan involving two new virtual brands, The Meltdown, focused on the diner's melts, and The Burger Den, specializing in burgers, sounds like a promising possibility for breathing new life into the business. A college campus quick-service outlet called The Den by Denny's is taking aim at the co-ed crowd as a captive audience in need of fast eats. And an expansion of basic ingredients to accommodate a more mindful audience is letting Denny's meet diners where they are, in the present.